Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting December 18th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Eastern on Zoom platform and in person. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later review on the town's website. I see we have a quorum in the room, so we don't need to do a roll call. Sven Weber hereby call this meeting to order. First agenda item is review and approval of the minutes from November 13th. Any comments?
I move to approve.
Any second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye. It's herewith unanimously approved. Second item on the agenda, future proposed meeting dates. Alan?
Sure, so as you know, it's a plan, not a fixed schedule, but I think what I want to do is highlight a few things for consideration, given the holiday season, where, you know, we've had to juggle our second Wednesday slot just for sort of, you know, commission convenience, but also just because of, you know, sort of the town calendar. I did want to identify that January 8th is actually the second Wednesday. We don't know as far as the commission's schedule or interest, but that's just a couple weeks away, you know, so, you know, there's an option that we might want to consider the 15th. I'll say for of interest that we have, the town warrant opens on January 17th. So we are going to be reviewing some of them in draft, but we may have more information to share before it opens, and, you know, it might be worth, you know, giving us a little time to develop them a little bit more, because we're going to have a conversation, but we can even leave that as a sort of question on whether we want the 8th or the 15th. And I don't know if anybody has a strong opinion or schedule conflict with either. Dave, we're just talking about calendars.
Yes, sure.
And trying to understand for January, the second Wednesday is the 8th. And that's just a couple weeks away. And the question becomes if we want to contemplate the 15th. And I was also saying dovetailing that with two things. Warrant opens on January 17th, so we should be able to meet before that. And hopefully have a little more developed warrants. And then we have the 27th, I want to identify is tentative date for an important select board meeting that's going to deal with MCI. So because things need to sort of develop, I'm thinking the 15th might be preferable, just to allow us to be a little bit more developed and informative, so that this commission can be aware, because the wastewater treatment, you know, sort of issues over at MCI is a big deal and important for this commission. So there's flexibility, but I just want to put that out as far as, you know, some consideration for you.
Yeah, I think if there's no conflict for neither of us, I would say it's your call and make a decision how prepared you are. It doesn't make sense to have a meeting when things are half-baked.
Exactly. And what I would do is sooner rather than later, we're going to start getting some a little bit more form. There's still a lot of fluidity with the town manager's office, the FinCom and all that. So I'm leaning to the 15th. And if I see a reason to accelerate it, I'll reach out, but I'm leaning on the 15th. And as soon as we nail it, we'll reach out and not wait just, you know, until just before the 8th. Yeah, if you can hold the 15th, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I would make a comment on either for February, but looking at what's on the list for March, this might be a better place. So I got some questions around synchronizing around safety for pedestrians, bikes, and so on. And we have more or less kind of three groups in town. We have the safety management group. We have the transportation advisory committee. Both of them, let's say, look at things, but have no budget. And the one party executing and having hopefully a budget next year on this is us. And following on the discussion we had on the last commission meeting about how we synchronize and build in safety, things might make sense to have at least kind of parts of the session, the traffic advisory committee and the safety management group joining but I see we talk about the roads program anyway in March, perhaps that's the better one. But I think we should keep that somewhere in mind that this would be something to just discuss how we synchronize, given we touch a lot of streets in the coming years. Yeah.
Okay, and
idea.
with the second Wednesday is the 12th, that's February 12th. And then, I don't have the March date, but February 12th is gonna be when we're gonna be more developed with the budget and the articles. I think that may be, we'll juggle whether February, or March works for TAC and this commission. Okay.
All right.
Great.
That is,
Okay.
no, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on the calendar? I hear none, so let's move to public comments on topics that are not on the agenda. As usual, public comments will be limited to 15 minutes in total, with no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker. The commission welcomes written comments at any time, so please use that if you read it all. With that, are there any public comments? Not here in the room, anything online? Is there more?
Let me see. Bob, can you see, is there any comments online?
No, there are
Any
no
hands?
comments. Nobody's got their hand up.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
so no public comments today. So that moves us straight to the stormwater enterprise credit review.
Great, I'm going to bring up both Steve Dukran and Sammy Poodle, who are sort of our engineers. Tell you what, if we. Can we, Steve, come on over here.
You know
Steve.
what? I can squish down. I got tons of room over here.
Yeah, we're good. Steve, come on right over. I'm gonna sit here, Steve, you sit next to me so I can run the show, right? Right. Okay, so, so I will bring up, let me share the screen. Steve, you want to do a little introduction?
Yeah, not a whole lot. We've been here a few times, reviewed all to discuss this topic and we've moved on from, and Sammy will recap what we did in the last couple of months, what we have achieved and where we're gonna go next. So we continue to work with the consultant, Weston and Sampson, on a as-needed basis.
Hold on. Hello?
Okay, great.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that we have continued to work with Weston and Sampson, a consultant, to advise us and to bring their perspective of how this process especially occurs in other towns, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So today the presentation will focus on the credit policy, but Sammy will do a small recap, and then she will talk also about the schedule of how we can get to the end goal in this program.
Okay, and before Sammy starts, Bob, can you allow me to co-host so I can share my screen?
Okay, give me a second. All right. Okay, you should be okay on your end, Alan. Sorry about that.
Sorry? Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Samisha, and I'll go through the credit policy. The draft of the stormwater enterprise credit policy was made public, was made available to the PwC. This is just gonna revise all of that in smaller portions and easier to understand. Let's go through the next slide. Okay, just for the recap, the stormwater enterprise was established in order to solve the stormwater issues, meet the regulatory requirements, EPA, MS4 permit, right? The goal of the goal of the stormwater enterprise is to rehabilitate aging infrastructure, reduce flooding erosion, control water pollution and meet regulatory standard, meet EPA MS4 requirements. We have received the draft MS4 recently, and we're reviewing through it, and the review period is up until February, so the new permit is coming up soon. And then prepare for the extreme weather events, which all of us have been like talking throughout this.
And I would highlight with these regulatory updates, again, this is an EPA, regulations. We've been talking about the fact that they were ramping up expectations
Mhm.
from awareness to inventory to real investments and needs. And this is the beginning of the real requirements for investments, into infrastructure. So sort of building the utility so we can respond to that has sort of been a key driver. Go ahead.
Not related, well, it's related, but not technical.
Yeah.
Can that be made a little larger by you or Bob so people in the room can see it?
And while Alan does that, and as the new permit gets, goes through the public hearing or the public comment period
Mhm.
and gets finalized, we will keep the board informed. In fact, we will seek to come and expand on what this permit is doing or bringing.
Do you want us to hold questions or should we ask them as you're going along?
You can ask the question as it goes.
As a taxpayer, I'm thinking, how mandatory are these investments given EPA regulations? And how much waiving room do we have? Are these things we have to do by law to meet certain standards in the new era?
Mhm.
Or do we have some?
No, there's some specific metrics, for instance, something simple people can relate to, stormwater, the catch basins we have. If they are substandard and we have to do the inventory, you have to do a certain percentage per year replacement, and that's not inexpensive. That's real money. Some of the other challenges, which might be soft money, are gonna be complying with water quality standards in rivers and streams. And so phosphorus is sort of a big area of concern. And the range of cost to mitigate is gonna go from, tens of thousands to millions of dollars, depending on, and it's gonna vary. And I will say, Dave, part of this discussion, and I'm just sort of the preamble, we've stood up the utility, the framework. We're going with a commission to introduce the idea of a budget, which we've done, rates and sort of potential rate schedules, which we've done. And the other third leg of that stool is credits. And tonight, we're gonna focus on credits. And then with the goal of, we've introduced it to the commission, and over the next few months, we're gonna start sharing with a broader group. So the questions you have will be in anticipation of what other people are gonna ask as well, so it's helpful.
And the second part of your question, Dave, is if we don't meet the requirements and the requirements are listed out through our notification to the EPA, what meaning milestones, if we don't, it comes with fines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the town has a
Right.
money at stake.
Yeah, there's a risk.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
The purpose of this fund would be to provide consistent funding regarding the stormwater management. As of now, it's been through the general fund and been like inconsistent with how much we would be spending because we have like greater, bigger issues going on. So that's why we're doing the stormwater enterprise. So good compliance with the environmental regulations and reduce flood risk and protect water quality. The benefit would be efficient allocation of town resources, enables long-term planning for the stormwater needs, and then frees the general fund for the other municipal priorities that needs to be focused for the schools and libraries.
Let me add one thing, I think in the discussion of the last weeks, at least I got, it's important to understand is if this is financed by the general fund,
Mhm.
the residents pay 93% of it. With this structure, given that we are looking at residential and non-residential,
Mhm.
the residential is, according to the last numbers we saw, like only 51%.
Mhm.
So we're shifting the burden of financing that to the properties that have these kind of large, impervious areas, and not that 93% of the cost is on the taxpayer.
That's a great point to make, you know, to the
Mhm.
taxpayers,
Yep.
you know.
Okay. We have outlined the key steps that has already been taken and that has been identified in order to have implement the rate. The first one is we presented the stormwater budget, in September to the PWC. We have presented the stormwater fee structure options, three different kinds of options. And today we're doing the credit policy. And then we're planning to finalize the Concord Stormwater Enterprise Fund development that Weston and Sampson has been working on to be publicly available by end of January, so everyone can read through it. And then we're planning to conduct the public outreach up until April, from February to April. And after that, we'll have the PWC meeting, next slide.
As I enlarged it, it just doesn't come.
The plan is to have the public hearing on the stormwater fee structures and credit in May 2025 for the approval. We had the meeting with the town manager and she said that the fees can be approved by PWC ahead of time. And what we're doing is we're approving with the condition that if adjustment needs to be made after the budget approval, then we'll have a meeting and approve it. But we can do the fees and credit policy approval in May. It doesn't have to be after the town meeting. And then we'll be presenting the enterprise budget, operation and capital, in the town meeting in June 2025. We will also be recapping regarding the fees. So with the larger audience, so they will be aware of that. We're working with NISC, regarding the contract to start, and develop the billing process for the stormwater fee, which would be early 2025. And with the anticipate to start billing, for the stormwater fee collection by July 2025.
I will
So-
say,
Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say standing up this new utility comes with lots of sort of additional challenges, not routine. And literally working with a utility billing company, which it introduces challenges. So there's different vendors, different platforms depending on each community. We work with NISC, which really is the financial software for municipal light plan. And they need it and they kind of drove the bus. We've adopted it. So it's really a municipal electric platform adapted for water and wastewater. And we like to have one bill, so it also includes the broadband, right? And now we're looking at, well, how can we adapt it to stormwater? And they have some experience. Again, the standing up stormwater utilities is happening. So we're working with them, but that's gonna be a stretch, and we know that, and we're working closely to try and make sure that we can implement this, but we'll keep you posted on how that's going.
So do I understand you that you're trying to add this payment to an existing bill?
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
great, which is great because, and so important, because giving, again, taxpayers one more piece of paper, one more bill to chase
Exactly.
and check to write.
That's right. It's not ideal. So that's where we're leaning here
Yeah,
and hoping they can work with us and we can make that happen. And that may dictate the frequency. And we think the monthly is probably gonna be the way we need to do it because we have monthly bills. If we had to go standalone and not through them, we may have other alternatives, but these are all real-time decisions that we're working on with the NISC direct as well as the townhouse as well, and the collector's office.
Yeah, I think regarding the billing, we'll have more idea after we get together with NIC more. If it will make sense to be like monthly or annually or quarterly, whichever would make sense or whichever would make it more efficient, but
Can you go back to the?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, you were gonna say something, it's fine.
Yeah, I think the monthly in that sense makes sense. Instead of doing some odd cycle, if we use that system that is sending out anyway monthly. But one question is, what happens in the case the annual town meeting would not approve the budget.
We're saying we'll be approving the fee with the condition that
Yeah, but-
adjustments may be required.
But then there's
when-
no funding.
So
at
we
all.
are working to populate, we're working with finance to try and make sure regardless, we have to comply with certain components of the program. And so there is an allowance that we're putting together within the general fund to be supported. We are also standing up for the first time a stormwater enterprise budget. We've never done that, but this is the time in the finance cycle to do operating budgets. So we've been instructed to build it. We'll include it for consideration at the townhouse. So Sven, we are looking at just ensuring there is a backstop. It may be, lean, but it will be enough for at least to sort of comply for the next year.
So for me to understand is that when we get approval, we get, let's say, the budget, then there's certain personnel would then also be allocated to that, also like Sami or.
So we are
Yeah.
building that as we speak.
Okay.
That is the operating budget that we talked about was, we posed somewhere over 550,000 or something like that annually. And that includes staffing, equipment, third-party services. And so we're building that now. If we don't get the budget passed or approved, we'd have to sort of tailor that back just to sort of literally tread water. That's
So I
what
think
we're
it would
doing.
be good to know in that process at a certain point is, one is how much of the current cost that sits in the general fund, like you
Mhm.
are getting moved over, so
Mhm.
that we can make a representation to say is, we are just taking X amount of dollars of cost out of the general fund into this. Because that takes it away from taxpayer into a fee payer structure.
I want to address that right now because, as you know, we have talked about our real needs far exceed $1
Yeah, yeah.
million.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so what we're looking at in the $1 million budget, subject to credits and other reductions, will probably use on immediate needs outside of what's done
And
today.
I understand that, it is more kind of if you would continue the old structure in the general fund. And sorry to pick on you,
Yeah.
No,
so
it's good.
Sami would be financed by the general
And
fund.
that's barely funded.
Yeah, but that would be via the general fund taxpayer money.
Right.
But with the new enterprise fund, Sami, most likely, the cost will be allocated,
Certainly not next year, not in FY 26.
not?
No, FY 26, because it's only $1 million, half of which goes into operations, that half goes into capital
Yeah.
costs. It'll be for additional services.
Okay,
Until the fund builds up, and we can get more money and stabilize it, then we can look
Then
at
we
it.
could do.
okay,
And
I
Right now,
definitely,
so there's not a net, we want to be clear
Yeah.
that this is in addition to existing. This isn't
General.
taking some existing and transferring it yet. So, but this is,
yeah,
building the budget will allow us to
Yeah.
make sure that
so let's,
we have the clear explanation to what's happening. And I
Okay.
think that's, we want to make sure that, people are aware of what the funding is based on, what the budget's based on, and how we build that out as far as staff, equipment, third party,
okay,
services.
so when will we see the final budget?
So we are working on the general fund presently, over the holiday season. I think, Christmas, there might be a package of it's that tight, but we're also using a new platform. This is the ClearGov. And, the finance chief, CFO has asked that we work on the enterprise in January.
Okay.
So we'll kind of understand the tool better, and we will be using the model of our water, sewer, and we'll also be working on the solid waste, recycling as well as the stormwater. So it's a lot of work in January. So,
And MCI,
No.
and MCI.
Okay, let's go over the credit. General policy would be credits are available for eligible properties. You can get up to 50% of credit in the stormwater fee, depending on what you have within your property, right? And then property owners will have to apply with complete documentation and allow inspection if town staff wants to go in and inspect the stormwater system they have. There- that's provided within the property. And then credits are not transferable to new property owners. The application needs to go every year, so it kind of makes sense. Let's go through the other one, to go into more detail regarding the credit. We have three types of credit. One's small residential credit, the other one is non-residential and large residential credit, and the senior and low income resident discount. For the small residential credit and non-residential credit, it's kind of like a similar approach. Small residential credit is for the single family homes, duplexes and similar properties. Acceptable BMPs would be rain gardens, dry wells and forest pavers. We just have three types because for the small residential, these makes more sense than having all of the ones listed for the large residentials. And then all BMPs that have been constructed no earlier than February 2008, which is the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, which is getting updated soon, so we would have to be compliant with the new one, but as of now, and the credit value that you can get is up to 50% for the stormwater fee. Similar with small residential and large residential is similar. It's just the acceptable BMPs are more options, all the separator, sediment forebay, rain gardens, constructed stormwater wetlands, filters, dry detention basins, all of that. And the credit value would be up to 50%, no matter how many BMPs that you have within the property. Let's go to the next.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, yeah.
Can you define a large residential? Because you have duplexes and similar properties. So are we talking more than 2 units in a building?
Yeah, we have explained it in the fee structures as well. It's the same structure where
I'm
I
trying to.
think it's
Yeah.
four or more.
Four or more.
Units.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thanks.
Okay.
Are we coming always back on the wording around small versus large?
Yeah, it was confusing. We tried to change because this one also had the residential property, and that's why we put the large
Well-
residential.
There are gonna be some residential properties that the buildings are gonna be larger than a large residential.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Not
trying to
depending on the
figure out
size.
how we're actually
Yeah.
defining, that's.
And the stormwater, the report that we're finalizing would have all of the details. It's like a
Okay.
detailed
Thank you.
explanation. I think, yeah, this word always confuses.
So you talk about credit up to 50% and rain gardens, dry wells, porous pavers can vary in size. Is there an approach
There's a
to how,
requirement on how much,
okay,
yeah. It's specific, it didn't go over greater of 500 square foot or 1/4 of impervious area on the parcel.
Yeah, but-
um, and then for someone to inspect from Public Works, we have to pay, that's an additional cost to
That's
us.
part of the operating cost.
So that, okay,
So is the homeowner, did they have to pay you to come out and take a look?
No, that'll be built into our operating budget.
Operating budget for the stormwater.
Yeah. And so
For
what
the
we're-
extra fee.
I foresee a lot of people, I mean, I was thinking about myself, I have brick and I have patio box and I'm like, okay. How close are they together? Is that considered pervious or not? And I'm like, okay, the brick's probably not, but maybe that patio probably is. How do you define it? What percentage? I go, you guys are gonna have a lot of people going, I don't, this is gonna be a really massive man hours, I think, to define these.
So it
things.
really depends on how we define what the credits are. Now, understand the following. Some of these areas, we're talking about base fees of $75 a year. So
Right.
you're gonna go through that analysis for $35, okay?
Yeah.
Some people will.
Some people will.
And then you also have larger commercial complexes where it might be $20,000 a year.
Mhm.
And they have infrastructure they're investing in to do the right thing. So what we want to be careful is that we have a program that is manageable
Right.
and reasonable. And we do have to be a little bit mindful of the fairness and equity is really about, as Sven mentioned, not putting the entire burden on residents. That's the big overarching message. Having every property owner, whether you pay taxes or not, participate and contribute. That's important, but we have to be careful that we don't conquer ourselves to death and overthink and prescribe a system that requires more money to administer than collect.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
I think to her point, and given the experience we had with our garbage system change, I think communication will be key. Examples of things that say, these are examples you can potentially get credit for, these are things you will not, so people can somehow understand
Identify.
it. But there will be a lot of need of kind of education behind that.
That's right.
Just extrapolate our experience on.
That's right. And I think we have to be very clear with what we're doing and why, so people understand, you know, if there's, we want to encourage people doing the right thing. That's always an overarching message of stormwater management. That's the whole idea. But we also have to understand, you really don't want us spending time and resources when we're collecting nominal amounts.
Right.
And maybe there's a decision that there's some limit of, you know, we want everybody to participate, but many people are really gonna be just educated, informed. But really the credits might be more leaning towards the more impactful, you know, operations. We have to go through that discussion.
So, one question on this February 2008 deadline. So I understand it's the date of the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, but there might be kind of stuff out there implemented
Up to
that
date.
are already kind of that we're, let's say, January 2008, but is already in compliance with the handbook. Wouldn't it be better to say it's just should be constructed according to the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook and not have an arbitrational date sitting there?
Yes, we wanted to put, so the Massachusetts handbook gives all different kinds of BMPs that can be installed. It's for the guidance of
Yeah.
what exactly. We wanted to put a date, so it's not like. And then if you believe that what's in your property, should be credited, then you would be applying for the permit, and then we'll have to like do the review, but there needs to be some kind of standard to.
You know, I agree, it's like, but would be saying is constructing
Not
according
specify which
to
day.
the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook.
Yeah, that's right. You're referring to standards,
Yes,
when it was installed.
it doesn't matter when it was installed,
That's right.
if they updated it, let's
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
next year, then from there on, that's the standard.
Yeah,
So
Mhm.
I think the way we can look at this, and that's actually a good point you raised,
Mhm.
that we have to look at the intent, and the intent is, as you pointing out, is are they really meeting the requirements
Yeah.
based on more current standards? And if it's that important to an applicant, they'll have to demonstrate, the burden will be on them to demonstrate how they're meeting that intent. I could see a large commercial property.
Yeah.
With, you know, with,
mhm,
that was developed and had a system, the stormwater management system prior to 2008, making that argument. And if they went to hire an engineer to show that they are meeting the standards, I think it's a good idea. And we should consider that.
Okay,
I don't know whether it's an advantage or disadvantage, but I feel like the most uninformed person on the commission. I can't tell you what a rain garden is, a dry well, or a forest paver. And I'm serious, and so when you tell me, oh, these are gonna get you a deduction, a credit, don't underestimate what people are gonna have to be educated about you know, at least with a web link, you know, here, you'll go and find it quickly.
Okay.
And because it means I need to spend time educating myself about this stuff, to figure out whether it's worth fighting for, figuring out whether I want to get $25 back on my, so. please,
Yeah.
Just making
Student
the
no knowledge
link
of these
available.
laws.
So don't have, not rainwater added to your tomato garden, that doesn't qualify, right?
I don't know what that means, you know, I just moved here from the city, I'm a new taxpayer.
Yeah, as requested, we would do examples and we would,
Yes.
would educate that way.
And then make the handbook available in the website. That would be good.
But even
idea to
handbook,
keep-
my eyes glaze over and I start to think, oh, no, I gotta go look at a handbook.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so,
there's like
so
a
this
lot
is
of
the reality,
options that
Dave.
we have,
Did I
so
see it?
it
There-
might be-
There's an interesting Concord experience. There are people who are experts in all these
Yes.
things. As well as if it's inconvenient,
Yes.
really, our job isn't, if we want to give you the tools, but we can't make you pay attention and listen
Right,
and do the work. And as long as we have the tools available and you're willing to do it, and you decide it's worth your while to save $25, because that's what we're talking about with a majority, then maybe that's great. If you go through the exercise, you know what you're doing? You're educating yourself. That's even more important. The goal is to manage the environment, and that's what we're trying to do. And so we're gonna do the best we can, but people are so busy that until it's the 11th hour,
Right.
then we can't bend in the pretzel to say, you know, we just gotta make sure we're clear. I think what we wanna do between now and a hearing is have outreach, inclusive of, and we'll talk about, you know, the League of Women Voters, you know, maybe even talking to Minuteman Media, where we can have a conversation, making our presentations available, you know, online or easy to access. And whatever else we can do for outreach, the bridge, you know, whatever we can do. But even when we do that, as we found in the trash recycling, it's gonna be 11th hour. And if it's really de minimis, then we may just lose those people because they don't have the time and resources, but it's a big lift to get everybody to pay attention to this stuff.
And I want to add to that, it is true that a lot of people out there, a large sector of the population in this town, they educate us because they do enough research on their own, right? Google everything and then tell us what we should be telling them. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We don't give out rain barrels anymore, do we?
No, we haven't done that because we were ahead of the curve. And then you can get, you know, they weren't readily available. Now you can go to almost any, you know, Sam's Club, Costco, and they have the discounts. You're not getting, they have more variety. It just became no longer necessary. But when we did, it was because we were early adopters. But now everybody has them. And, you know, we used to give out those nice old wooden ones, you
Yeah.
know, then give them out. They were not inexpensive, but try buying them now. They're
Yeah.
very expensive, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that may even drive that interest as well.
I bring it back.
Yeah, right. But ironically, they say, well, give us a discount on the rain barrel so we can get a discount on the stormwater.
But the rain barrel won't do it.
Yeah. rain
No,
barrel
no,
is
it's not on there. I don't see
It's
rain
not on the
barrels for
list.
the option.
But that was sort of, yeah,
That's
you're
a
right.
good practice to
Yeah,
have.
definitely.
Okay, and, we're giving up to 25% credit, for the senior and low income discount. It will be eligible for residents in, financial assistance program that we have in place, regarding the CMLP, the trash recycling, all of that, and,
Water, sewer.
Yeah, water, sewer. But it just needs to be applied every year because it depends on the, income of the family.
Just like the other program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the application process would be complete the credit application form. We'll look into the application form after this. Provide the supporting documents and then inspections to verify BMP functionality. So the town engineer might schedule the visit in order to look at the BMPs that you're saying you have in your property, right? And then renewal process will be annual renewal for all required credits, submit updated maintenance records and photos for that year. And then just benefits of participation would be environmental impact, and then financial savings, and then community contribution towards the Concord's infrastructure and environmental health. I hope this is readable, but I'm not going through each section, but this is the credit application, which is gonna be, so if it's the first time you're applying, which will be first time credit renewal, then you'll be applying for credit renewal. That way it is easier for us to review the plans or documents that you submit, right? Like faster approach. And then we have for the small residential credit, there's a section, you don't have to worry about filling out the 2.2 and 2.3 because it's 2.2 and 2.4. Because it's for the resident discount or the non-residential properties. But we just created one standard form for all of the credit policy that we'll be applying through. And then it gives out what's the required attachments for the applications. And then appeals and amendments. So we'll be using the NISC, hopefully we'll be using the NISC in order to bill, but there will be a case where it might be calculated wrong or you'll be like charging higher amounts and stuff. In that case, appeals and amendments can be applied. And all of the previous fees has to be paid in order to apply for the one that you're applying for. And then we'll be reviewing the application within 30 days and work through the bill dispute process. For the next slide, you'll see the application form, which is fairly simple. Once the public works receives it, we'll review it and we'll get back to the resident within 30 days. And go ahead.
You test these forms. With
the draft.
you test these forms with residents with sample.
Where did we get these forms from any other communities? I know we've been working with Weston and Sampson.
We got it from Weston and Sampson that they probably used the credit option from other communities, but updated it for ours.
So the model's out there, but no, there hasn't been a test yet because we haven't been out
Yeah,
there
sure.
to talk about it
I
yet.
just highly recommend that you just fill it out to 5 people
Yeah.
and have them just fill it out and tell me what's wrong,
Yeah.
where I'm confused.
1, 2,
Yeah,
3, 4,
yeah,
5.
He already volunteered.
I'll do it.
No, it would actually, would be helpful, and yes, I hear you.
Yeah,
It's
it would
just,
be
you
nice
know,
to
what
hear
it's
your
like, yeah.
feedback.
Sure,
once you
sure.
have a chance to look at it, you'll see the application in the draft.
Can I bill them for my time? Yes, yes.
Hopefully it will be simpler and wouldn't take me too much time.
If the operating budget is passed, you can bill for your time.
Be glad to
Can we
do
go
it.
through the next slide?
I had a question about the renewal. So if you renew something, like if maybe your yard doesn't change much year to year once you have the initial credit, would you be expected to submit new photos every year, or
Yeah, update the,
would you even know if someone just kept submitting the same photo?
no, because the BMTs you'll have to clean, maintain, right? It
Okay.
cannot be just the.
Oh, so the
BM.
maintenance
Yeah,
records would be
yeah.
the key, okay.
Like with many things that we do, we take a big leap of faith that
Mhm.
people are
Yeah,
doing the right thing.
okay.
But the maintenance record would be the key to.
I was just thinking of pavers, like some people have quite large patios with pavers, and that probably wouldn't change very much
Yeah.
year on end.
But they
Yeah.
do need to be maintained.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have to.
Water
do
to
it.
go through
For
the
the, pa-
cracks.
oh, okay,
Yeah, because the
Spaces.
pavers you need to do cleaning every year, I think, in order to in order for it to function as it intended, right?
Okay,
So inspection or cleaning records or anything.
Oh,
The intention is usually to look good and sort of support your grill.
yeah, well, I was thinking,
I hope everybody cleans it anyway, because it looks
but it's
good.
just neat, like I'm just out there cleaning, like I don't have any record
But
of it.
remember, we talk about porous pavers.
Yeah,
If you look at the handbook, it's a
Mhm.
special design.
Okay,
Under that paver is a very large amount of gravel
mhm.
that
Ah.
So
collects
that
the
it
water.
can,
so
it
can
collects the
drain.
water and it infiltrates
Okay.
into the ground, so.
so it is a specific design there, cause a lot of people have pavers. I mean, we have pavers with gravel, but I wouldn't necessarily know they didn't,
Yeah.
you know, they weren't what you were looking for.
All right, I think we want to be very clear that we're incentivizing good practices, but we're not encouraging people to try and skirt the program.
No,
And
but
I know
I
that,
think
and
people
it-
might
That's right. It's a-
unintentionally think that they
Exactly,
qualify and,
exactly.
and
We have
not
to be
even
clear
be
about
aware,
that.
yeah.
That's right. And you know, we don't want to misrepresent that. So that's important as far as the messaging. Like,
Yeah,
How does this credit program work?
yeah,
I mean, it's also important that we like let landscapers know. So if they're coming in, like, for example, like if I have to redo my patio,
Mhm.
it'd be great that if I get, Concord Patio and Sons,
Yeah.
that they come in and they're like, hey, we should do it this way. I mean, it'd be great to be sure that the people who do a lot of the construction around are actually
Great idea.
know.
And we do that with irrigation customers. We work with their vendors. So, because they're the ones primarily doing a lot of the landscape and work, so I think that's a great opportunity. And then they're informed enough to ask that they do this because they're trying to do the right thing for a recharge. So it's a good cycle.
yeah.
And I'll make sure to have the stormwater handbook available in our website, so if you are curious and you wanted to check out, then it'll show the details about what needs.
So, and there are pictures on this and so on.
Yeah, and use pictures and details regarding
Okay.
it.
So, yeah,
But
frequently
again,
asked
test
questions.
that with David.
Yeah.
I'm qualified.
What is a rain garden, you know?
Yeah.
There will be a quiz at the end.
Yeah, as per the communication, I feel like it should be made available to our webpage, so if
I'll be
anybody
the guinea
wants,
pig. I'm
curious
glad.
and wants to check,
Okay,
then it'll be in the Concord stormwater webpage, for sure, I'll put it there.
Good.
The next steps, we went through the key steps in the beginning, it's the same, we'll be making the final report available by January, end of January. So everybody, can have a look at it, read through it. And then we'll do the public outreach up until April, and then have the PWC meeting on May for the stormwater fee and credit policy approval. With the condition of regarding the budget approval. And then we'll working on create and finalize the billing process for stormwater fee, develop and implement billing process for stormwater fee in NISC. And then, we'll be presenting the projected, FY 2026 stormwater enterprise budget for the town meeting. And hopefully we'll start billing the stormwater fee by July. But we'll see how it goes with the NISC. It might take, because it's like all of the property has different impervious area. It's like a lot of things that we need to incorporate into the system, and so it might take it. But we're trying to get, and based on the conversation, they said that they can achieve. So
You've
And
heard that?
who's the hotline? So where are people calling to unload their complaints?
No.
the hotline. I guess it will
Is
look into
it
the
Alan's
next
cell phone
one.
number?
It's up there.
The last slide has my information, so I guess I am.
Sammy is our expert.
Yeah, you have to,
And I will say
you will
this,
have to think
no, I will
about
also
that.
say
Yeah,
this, we, just like with the, solid waste recycling, our administrative specialists all stepped up. They all got training, at least the basic training to try and help. And if things really escalate, that's when Justine got involved. But, the difference is the trash recycling was a very intimate, personal, important experience for people. And we made a change for something. And it was, we knew it was gonna be difficult, we can talk a little bit more about that. I know Aaron's in the audience, but this is different. But the order of magnitude is, you know, we're really trying to manage so that the cost is very reasonable. And, you know, we are talking somewhere in the, you know, under $200 per year total cost. I think part of our exercise is we got to make sure, and listening is important. People need to understand what we're doing and why.
Right.
I think it's really important to understand that this isn't a utility to come up, you know, and make money for something. This is a utility to manage our stormwater in an environmentally responsible manner and, you know, consistent with, you know, regulations. And we're not alone. The community's gonna be doing it across the board, but most people in Concord, they need to understand that. And that's gonna be a lot of the education.
I think the statistic that Sven was talking about was huge, like just you're taking something we all have to worry about and pay for and spreading that cost out among everyone who lives or has a business in Concord. Like, it's just so much better
Yeah.
to share that burden than have it all on taxpayers.
But it is a new cost to
Yeah.
taxpayers,
Yeah.
and they are gonna be
Yes.
unhappy.
Mhm.
So I would expect we are gonna hear a lot
A
of,
lot of
a
questions.
lot
about
of,
it.
well, a lot of like another, you know, now our recycling has gone up and I got this huge thing. And now I got this, and what else are you gonna give me? I foresee people are feeling like it's another straw on the camel's back. I expect we're gonna hear,
Yeah.
It's really not easy and
I don't think it's gonna be like, yes, it's all for the better good.
will
No.
not be easy in town meeting.
That's why we
No.
keep focusing on the outcomes, the benefits, the cost if we don't do it.
Right.
Yeah,
If we
you pay
don't
for
have
it
an
either way.
option,
Yeah.
And keep telling me it's not very, but it's a couple $100. It's not 2,000.
That's
Because my
right.
mind's gonna go nuts about what it is until I know the number.
Yeah.
And my other thought is to invite this credit process, as sort of an alternative. If you feel like you have this option, don't make it like, oh, by the way, be sure to.
Yeah, correct.
To invest, you know, in learning all about whether you can save $10, you know,
It's a relief valve.
yeah.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be used by most people.
Correct,
you know?
but we want to make sure, and this is all helpful, I mean, this is the beginning of our conversation, and it's gonna be, you know, 2 or 3 months of, we're gonna put it out there. The challenge in Concord is Concord has a lot of big things in front of it. And we know that. We also know our responsibility is to be ahead of it. And I think we are, and, you know, success is gonna be, this is the long run. Stormwater's not going away. I think we're putting together a program that is thoughtful. Your questions all help, because you get too close to it from this point, so. And we will hear when we go out to the League of Women Voters, you know, the
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
and concerns, and that'll only inform and improve, you know, what we get.
Yeah.
So, what you get at the end of the day.
One last quick thing on residential, large residential in this town is kind of a hot button. A large residential, Madison Drive, are those large residentials? Or, you know, or you've got to define, because there's gonna be big houses that are bigger than these condo units,
that's what I
right?
said,
Which
yeah.
you said. So be careful about 4,000 square feet, or what is the number? Large residential is, yeah, it's not a word that you can just use for apartment, for a collection of apartments and condos.
Yeah, I'm hearing it, and I haven't literally gone into the weeds, I know, but if we don't come up with a clean, clear explanation, we're gonna have this conversation over and
Yeah.
over and over again. So we need to really work on that.
Yeah,
'Cause if we don't,
because
it's just gonna be
residential is 4
confusing,
or
yeah.
more,
Yeah.
um,
So,
Units.
Maybe just use a different terminology then.
Yeah,
Instead of
We
large
switched
versus
it.
small.
We switched it.
Yeah, but
from-
the question
we
was-
had an internal conversation and did
I-
this, and we ended up here.
Residential,
But I think
so it
it's-
makes it sing.
Point is well made, and we gotta see. And I'd love to say, you know, this is one area where we aren't the tip
The
of the
wording.
spear. It's, you know, there's 20 other utilities out there in Massachusetts who've gone through this. And some, because they just did it stealth, it just hit. That's not great, but it was successful, but it wasn't a conversation. Many communities, there's been conversations, iterations, so we gotta just make sure we understand, you know, those lessons learned. Any other questions on what we have some, I see on the screen, but anybody, if you wanna open up to the questions?
Any questions still from the
Yeah.
commissioners on this before we open it to public? No?
Is there one more slide? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just the contact information and what.
Okay.
Oh, there is Sammy's number, right?
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Hey, Alan, we just lost the audio from the meeting room.
This is Carlin Reed. Is the meeting still going on?
Not sure. We can't hear anything from the
Yeah, I can't hear either. It's windy.
they've cut us off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there are technical difficulties now, folks. Give us a second, please.
yeah, no worries.
They're all remote.
This
Brown.
Bob, can you hear me?
We can
Yes, you
hear
are
you.
back.
Okay.
So we still have an echo now.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, so we lost power. I still see people in the meeting, and right now I'm going to,
Can you
Can you
switch
see
to
us?
view? Can you go to meeting to see who has their hand up for comments?
yeah, I did see,
Wendy does.
yeah, I see Wendy, and she's
Okay.
got a hand up. And-
All right,
So does Carlin.
okay.
Okay, Carl, we just had technical difficulty, so we'll start with,
So Wendy, what?
with Wendy.
Let's start with Wendy.
And then we'll, Carlin, you're on as well. So sorry about that technical difficulty.
No, that's okay. So just, I think it's great that you're planning ahead for public input. I just want to point out that the enterprise public hearing is May 1st. So you might want to keep that in mind as you put your timeline together, because people will be asking about your rates, et cetera, on May 1st. Thanks.
Thank you.
Finance
Colin
Committee.
Reed?
Thanks, Carlin Reed, 83 Woodsend, member of the Finance Committee, speaking on my own behalf. I noticed that the senior and low-income discount program looks like it affects only those who are eligible and have qualified through the senior circuit breaker tax credit. I would recommend that you make that point a little clearer because there are a lot of seniors in Concord. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other hands up?
Let's see.
No, doesn't look
No,
like.
I don't see any. No,
Okay. Nobody in the room? Okay. With that, we're done with that agenda item.
okay.
Before we move to D4, I figured out that there was a line break, which I missed D2, commissioners' comments.
Oh. We moved quickly. There's no comment.
Yeah, no, it's directly here. It's like down there.
It's in the fine print, sorry.
So just
Yeah.
quickly on commissioners' comments and perhaps I started a little bit because there are very few things that are of interest for the whole commission. First of all, as I'm representing Public Works in the Warner's Pond Task Force, the Warner's Pond Task Force met yesterday for, I don't know how many meetings we had. It was a lot of meetings, subgroup meetings. So, this was the first time all three potential proposals, were kind of put together on, say, on the table, at, close to final stage. So we have three proposals on the table, which means is, dredging, dam removal, or it has no action, but it has kind of just ongoing maintenance, but not doing major things scenario. These are the three scenarios. Based on yesterday's round, there will be some changes, feedback that will be incorporated in these proposals. There will be a public hearing, or let's say public comment event somewhere in the late February, March timeframe, to see what the public is saying about these different options. And then somewhere in the month after that, April, May-ish, there will be a final recommendation of this for Public Works. In the end, it means is in the scenarios, dredging no or little action. It's mainly kind of dam stays where it is. The dam needs to have ongoing maintenance. In some case, the maintenance of the pond is, some tasks are with us or some tasks will be, say, outsourced to others. In the scenario where the dam is taken down, definitely, I think this will be a major look for engineering to look what that means. And going into that, it's very hard to say at the moment in which direction it goes.
Were you guys able to put together like a budget for every scenario?
So the budget is there for the dam removal scenario.
Okay.
And there's a wide range of budget for the dredging, ranging from $5 to $12 million for dredging.
5 to 12 million
Yes,
for
And
dredging.
that's
for dredging.
One-time dredging or
For
ongoing?
one-time dredging and no cost for ongoing maintenance, no cost for the fish ladder they're proposing and other things. So these are things that need to be baked in. And on the no action, there was no budget behind it at all. So this was one key feedback in the meeting to they go back and make them also on the financial side comparable, to see what it is on the dam removal. The dam removal itself, it's about $1.1 million, of which a significant amount we town could expect to get from the state of Massachusetts. And then, but they're proposing, say, some improvements on kind of access to the creek, having a more of a walk potentially around the pond. That depending on how excessive you go and make that, it could add another $1 million, but that is still a kind of a $2+ million compared to the $5 to $12 million on Dredge.
This is a Natural Resources Commission subcommittee, isn't
That's
it?
yes, yeah.
So what analysis has come out with the habitat ecosystem impact? Because in some ways that's priceless. Like, let's say we have snowy egrets there, and it's the only snowy egret within a 50-mile radius, and that costs, I mean, I'm just, you know.
I think there's a lot of material. There was a massive amount of material uncovered, reported additional things. There is one specific endangered species that is kind of close to the pond. When if the dam would be taken down, that area would give that species more room.
More room.
Yeah, and technically we are avoiding to mention what it is because it's a collector's item.
No, I don't,
so,
I,
yeah.
that's fine. I'm wondering about, I mean, ecosystem services is always undervalued
Yeah.
and all of that. And I'm just wondering, as we look at this, we're looking at the engineering costs, the maintenance cost, but I'm just wondering, what is the environmental cost and
I
what are
think
the
that's-
long-term
yeah.
implications of that?
I think
How
there's
that-
no dollar or whatever in that count. I think we have to, in the end, it's for us, Public Works, we're the executing entity in the end here. I think there's a high political stake in this with some very outspoken interest groups. Let's see where it goes. Yeah, and you should come definitely to the public input event.
When is
and
that?
That will be announced somewhere in late February, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah, so whoever has thoughts should be there and bring it in as a citizen. It could be a significant financial project for the town, so citizens should voice their opinion. I think the other part is generally, as I said, I think Public Works is getting mentioned a lot in many of the different commissions, select board meetings, finance committee meeting. I think there's a lot we are moving here. I think we got a lot of credit for what we are doing. I think we are reaching a point where we just have to just understand the town is stretching financially to its edges. Yeah. And we have to think very carefully. It's okay. Yes, okay, let's get financing for the roads in place. Let's get the stormwater stuff in place. But on operation costs and say investments thereafter, we have to think 3 or 4 times. What is the right time? What is the priority? Where does it come from? Because the burden on the taxpayer is tough. Finance committee, I think, will meet tomorrow on their final guidance. It will be definitely sounds like what was indicated last time, less of a percentage increase than last year, in an effort to keep these things under control. And I think when we look at numbers and when we look at budget, we should make sure we have that in mind. Yeah. Any other things commissioners heard or saw that is of interest?
For me.
Yeah.
No, I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of dog poop bags along Stowe Street right now because there's not a bin there, and lots of grumbles as to why there's the big bellies at the other 2 entrances, but why not that entrance? I mean, there's one And the other two entrances, so 2 out of 3, and the one that didn't get it. Cause I walk my dog every morning, and I'm like, oh, the pile's getting bigger, I'm like, okay.
So people just leave it there.
They just leave it there, it's kind of a civil disobedience. It's like, we'll just put it here,
That's one
where's our
word
trash
for it.
can, we'll put it here,
Yeah,
and we'll just show.
I'd call it something else.
So,
Yeah, that half a block walk would be a killer.
it's, I've just changed my route.
Yeah.
So I go backwards now. And then so I go by the other one.
It speaks to Sven's, sort of the challenge in Concord is we have to be mindful of our resources and budgets and services and expanding them without expanding our fund base, just it doesn't work. So, and I try to tell people when we manage a lot of the resources and they're, the community's resources, and we do the best we can, but, at some point, the community has to understand they're a part of it as well, so.
I'm still getting questions about the recycling and the trash. And requests for smaller barrels, which for smaller. Down to the 35 gallon barrels, but I try to tell people that's not technically possible, correct?
Mhm.
And that's not gonna change in the near future.
They can go to the 64-gallon barrel for recycling though.
Yes, they can go down, but for some people, that's not small enough. And I've recommended that, and they have looked at other vendors.
Mhm.
Right? And I guess the the Council on Aging has a list of those, is that right?
Yeah, if it's helpful, I can maybe have Aaron McCloskey just speak a little update. I don't want to, it's not a topic point, but it's sort of a comment, and I
Sure.
think it's worth just sharing, because there's a lot of information, but we'll sort of just quickly bring the commission up. Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground Superintendent.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Alan. So the town has offered the residents and subscribers the option to exchange the toters on the recycling side from the 96 down to the 64 gallon. We have had hundreds of residents make that request formally, and we've deployed those carts and continue to deploy them as we receive official requests from residents. So we don't have a 35 gallon option on the recycling side yet. We are still working with the contractor Waste Management to explore operational solution to be able to provide that possibly in the future, but it's not something that's currently offered and available. There are some operational constraints with the equipment. But they are, working with us to try to potentially come up with a possible solution in the future. Again, yeah, it's not currently available. As far as the comment on, I can't speak to what another department, the Council on Aging, is doing or providing for options. I don't see anything officially. We're not providing recommendations for specific other contractors. We typically don't do that. So that's kind of,
Okay.
I don't have an official word on that, if you will. I did
Right.
read a newspaper article recently that mentioned and referenced something like similar to what you're referencing. But that, I think some folks that might be looking at other options are using, but it's not anything that we are kind of officially offering out. We have the one program, and that's what we're kind of providing this time.
I would offer, and it's interesting, our recycling is significantly up as far as, and, so our program is very successful. We
Yeah.
have more participation,
Mhm.
more recycling. This is really the goal.
Yeah.
And it really is the small generators,
right.
that has been sort of a challenge, and, we're continuing to explore and trying to understand it and look at whatever else is out there, but, I think, a lot of the angst early on significantly been diminished by experience, which is we were told would happen, as well as having that 64 gallon sort of alternative, and even some of the convenience factor. We're hearing people saying, now that I understand how this thing rolls and it's actually easier than
Yeah,
we're hearing that.
it's much easier than the toads.
But,
Yeah.
so, and we are here, I just
I
want to
mean,
be
than the
careful,
carry
that's
toad.
not what people are cheering about, but we are hearing that. Unfortunately, Justine St. John and our, admin group are hearing those things. I think they're feeling like, okay,
Yeah,
maybe, maybe it is good, but we don't wanna diminish the challenge of the really small generators and, but in total, Concord is moved into the next century.
So are all toters deployed now?
Yes, so
And they started with the new truck and everything? Or-
So all residents who've originally signed up and requested toters received toters. We did have what we're called kind of a second round.
Yeah.
So through the month of like November and into December, we've had obviously hundreds of additional subscribers request toters. We're continuing to, even as of this week, continue to deploy toters. We had additional toters manufactured. Waste Management, the contractor did, those were delivered. We've been working together with Waste Management to deploy all those toters to any residents. So any subscriber who as of last Friday subscribed to the program, or prior to last Friday, subscribed to the program, received their toters. We had, I think, between Friday and when we ran the count on Monday, we had 10 additional subscribers. So every week we're seeing now a handful of, multiple handfuls of additional subscribers and working to get folks caught up. Monday morning, I drove through the yard, I did a count, we had 10 trash toters left, and then we're out again, right after we had a tractor trailer deliver hundreds and hundreds of trash toters a few
Wow.
weeks ago. So as soon as we can get them in, they're going out. We have more subscribers now in the program we have in over 25 years. And many folks have requested additional recycling and trash toters, and we're working diligently on providing all of those.
So additional big recycling toters?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There
okay.
are hundreds of customers that have requested additional recycling and trash toters, and those have been delivered. Hundreds of customers that are requesting, exchanges for smaller toters, those have been delivered. And we continue every day to try to accommodate those requests as quickly as we receive them with the materials that we have available to
Yeah.
us, so.
That's great.
Just one final thing, and then we somehow have to get back to the agenda. I understand is while we had that backlog and still deploying the toters, the old stuff was, the old system was still running in parallel.
Mhm.
So when is the point where more or less it's just completely switched over to the new system?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
So as of this week,
Good.
we're working to, so we're trying to shoot for this week. We're working closely with Waste Management, like I mentioned. We are working to try to get all of the folks that originally had requested extra barrels, those extra units.
Okay,
So we are, as of our conversation with them yesterday, shooting for the end of the week, everyone will be caught up. 10 subscribers I referenced a couple of minutes ago. Hopefully we'll have toters by the end of this week. And then going into the holiday week next week. Hopefully everyone, we're planning on moving into that only picking up the toters.
yes, exactly.
And that's it.
And
Now, what vehicle, we don't dictate what vehicle Waste Management drives to pick
Okay.
up their toters. That's. We don't micromanage that piece of the contract, but they're looking to move towards that automation as quickly as possible.
because I think that will be important also for citizens to see this thing and the reason why you can't go so small.
And even the truck that they have now, depending on, the rear load of the truck, some of those trucks have automated arms that can
Yes.
pick up those
Yeah.
toters. It all depends on what they have. And, I think that, obviously too, they run an operation, mechanical things fail, trucks break down, things get switched out. So, from week to week or day to day, there might be a different truck in, but the idea is that newer automated truck is gonna be put in service as soon as Waste Management's ready to make that change and put that in service. So.
Okay.
The lesson I take away from this is for every person who complains, I've heard from 3 people who love the system. So there are definitely more people who really love it. But I would say that what I've learned from this is any major system change, there's always gonna be a few people who are truly, can't make the change for some reason, like they have a half a mile driveway uphill, and they're old. And it would be good, I don't know if the town has a policy, that we can't recommend anybody, or we can't have a short list of alternatives or people we could steer you to. or, you know, or maybe we have to steer you to the Council on Aging and they have a list, but.
I'm gonna say something very bold,
Yeah.
You say.
and so I'm gonna say this.
Yeah,
Your health and safety is the most important thing. Concord is taking care of the recycling. You wanna contribute, but sometimes you just can't. You know, if you can't manage if you have such a diminished amount of recycling, I don't want you putting yourself at risk of trying to tote something that's unreasonable. But Concord is doing a very good job with recycling. So in mass, we're succeeding.
Yep.
And, you know, I think people have to use common sense of, you know, and I have a mother who's 87.
right.
Who in her assisted living facility is managing her food waste scraps and doing everything she can to contribute. And it's a little bit, it's a lot for her, but this is even inside. It's just levels of what you can do.
Right, I'm just suggesting have somewhere where they can go, with some list or where they, an option, say, we can't serve you anymore.
I don't think the town can recommend a business, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's
So,
okay, that's the only thing I've taken, it's fine. Thank you, but it's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Very
all our
successful.
cardboard fits in the recycling bin.
Yes.
What?
All our
Okay.
cardboard.
Yes,
fit in there.
yes,
I don't have
yes.
to.
All right, so let's
Okay.
come back. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Come back. I thought it would be a short switch back to that
Yes.
agenda. So now go to D4. Fiscal year 26 town meeting, CPV draft articles.
Okay, I think this is an introduction and it's draft. And our schedule is, I did include in the packet, we all have a copy of the town meeting schedule, and that's really important. And it's interesting that we're having town meeting in June.
Yeah.
So it gives us a little window of time, so we're a little bit of ahead of the curve. But I've included, and I do this every year about this time, those articles. And Gretchen, I don't know if you were involved this time last year. So this is, it's new, but this is a cyclical thing. This is where we start pulling together and understanding what asks are we gonna have at town meeting? We meaning those things that public works should be aware of and involve our operations. And I call them routine and non-routine. So routine operation, just as an example, and it kind of listed, there's language and verbiage that's been created over time. And it's for sort of a repeat, you know, it's basically, for instance, water, sewer funds are enterprise funds. So there's an article every year, we go to town meeting for budget approval. That's the legislative body of town who approves the budget. To say, we're gonna make, you know, X amount of money in our rates. We have savings, you know, there's a reserve fund and it's got millions of dollars in it. But we asked town meeting for authorization to let the town manager expend the funds for the purposes that they've been collected. And so that's sort of a routine thing. Sometimes it's significant enough where the moderator might want to pull it for an opportunity for the community to learn a little bit more. And depending on what else is on the agenda. And this year, there are three articles I have here, the capital plan, the stormwater, and I will also say the MCI.
But it's not in here yet.
Did I not have the MCI yet? Okay, so I haven't captured that. These are drafts, but we're just starting to capture the needs. So for Public Works, take a look at the packet, read through it, the routine, we'll talk a little bit more but there's not gonna be a lot of conversation. The conversation is gonna be on our approach to funding roads improvements that we've been under investing in for years. As well as, and Sven sort of alluded to the fact that what I'd call ancillary investments that you often think about when you're doing a roads program. What other improvements can be done efficiently at the same time? Jeff, when you got on the board, the first question is, what about intersections and that, you know, changing things, not just pavement?
Yep.
The safety is increasingly an interesting concern as far as where can we do things to improve and modify to adapt to newer needs, you know, cyclists, pedestrians, that sort of thing. So we have been underinvesting in the roads. We've made that case. We've continued to have line items and engineering identifies, you know, buckets of areas of needs. And historically, we haven't been getting the funding. It's just easy to dismiss or not understand why aren't we putting more money into sidewalks or intersection improvements. This year, there seems to be, our message has been well received, both at the town manager's office, the chief financial officer, the FinCom, as well as other groups like TAC, the Transportation Advisory Division, are eager to try and help us realize some of these needs, and they're getting creative with how they want to do it. And the big opportunity is looking at a large borrowing, what they call something that may require, it's not just town meeting, it's called a tier 3, but it may need to be voted at the ballot box, because it's going to be, beyond our, debt capacity. And the goal is that we want to ramp up our investment over the next 5 years, so we can get to a point where we've made improvements and the routine annual investments will be decreased. And that's a concept. It is, contemplated that we could look at going to town meeting for a $25 to $30 million ask that we paid back over some period of time greater than 5 years, whether it's 10, 15 years. And so we get the approval, authorization from town meeting to put money into our roads. And I think how we frame it, and I want to talk about three concepts for this commission to be aware of. It may also include some of those ancillary, needs, like sidewalks, like the intersection improvements, or Steve, what else might there be, what other bin do we have? It's pedestrian.
Bicycle.
Bicycling, so maybe that's part of the borrowing, and let's say that's $1 million. Well, now we know we have money. We now know we want to integrate that into what corridors or paths are we working on and spending the money on the roads program. And sort of with, it'll be interesting in the future for the public works, if we get the authorization, we still will need to make the case as far as what are our projects. So there'll be a public process to share that, and that's good. But we'll have the funding available, so we can look at this project may be multi-year. But we're doing it in a way where we can work with one contractor and, get the efficiencies of, designing it, bidding it, awarding it, and construction in a way that's no longer at the end of the construction season, the year to year. So it's very creative, and I think this commission and our message has been heard. We're getting sort of, insight from the financial, interests in town of how this might be cobbled together. And I know Sven has been working hard, as the chair, also attending other meetings and talking this, through. And so that's where we want to just pay attention to this. And so it's roads improvements. And I have one other caveat that I've already teased, and I just don't want to share with this commission. We run into the problem of private ways. We have a situation right now where we're looking at an improvement. Financing is always a big problem. I'm looking to see if we can include an allowance for that work, which basically would say, if we're gonna borrow for it, the understanding is we already have a neighborhood where they understand what the betterment will be. They will pay it back, but we're using the town financial instrument to support that. And that way, it's not a hand to mouth, well, we don't have $120 to do this small project. No, we'll have it identified. And when we go and sort of assess a betterment, and we may do that in the White Pond area, we can say the funding mechanics are in place. We just need to go through the hearing process of establishing the plan of work, probable cost estimate, and a betterment, and know that when we go borrow, that will be paid back through the betterment process. So that's another piece of something, which is we're pulling together what I call a lot of orphans into a more comprehensive and efficient program. So that's what that's about. And Sven, I don't know, we've been talking, so you can.
Yeah, so just a few things, and for the benefit of the other commissioners, of which most of you, this is a repeat, but we have in the end this year 3 non-routine articles. Whereas the rest is routine business and typically not pulled out. So we have the roads program and financing, lifting up to tier 3. We have the stormwater enterprise fund discussed earlier, and then whatever is coming out of the analysis of the MCI water treatment facility. So that's the third one. On the tier 3 one for the streets, Anthony, the CFO of the town, presented on a joint meeting of the select board, FinCom and school committee on Monday, where that funding of $5 million was in tier 3. Again, this needs to be approved by town meeting and has to go to the ballot. So there is a risk that it is not coming through. So therefore, he also put an earmark in tier 2 capital that if the voter, for whatever reason, would reject the $5 million in tier 3, there's still funding available to do work, but not at a $5 million level, more at a $2 million level. But that is not things just falling completely to zero. Yeah, so if you see these numbers or people are confused why, let's say, a total of $7 million is showing up in the material, is this backup system. Just in case when stuff is getting distributed and people ask, we try to get 5 million, and if that comes through, the $2 million falls back and more or less disappears out of the general fund. I think important to understand also what I get on questions is around why do we need to upfront this? It comes back to the study we had like 2 years ago, that if you continue to invest on a $2 million level per year, the roads are getting worse faster than we can fix the potholes. Yeah, so we have to get into that program to invest the $5 to $6 million per year for the next 5 years to catch up and to get that, and then it can run back to a more normalized maintenance. That's the story when people ask, so why are you doing this? It's not to have the cost ballooning, and the study was quite clear. If this is getting pushed out by like 5+ years, the cost balloon to more kind of close to $60 million. So that's the storyline why it is needed.
Part of that story too is our PCI keeps getting lower,
Yeah.
even with the 2 million per year.
Yeah,
So
that's-
what is it, like 67? But then I think at some point it was explained that once you get to 60, it just drops precipitously. So you go from like fair to poor to very poor very quickly once it hits 60. Is that true? The
Yeah,
PCI?
and I try to explain to you, I'm sorry, just a relatable thing. You know, your skin, if you don't maintain it and damage it, if you let it go, you go from more modest medical needs to more significant medical needs, and the costs go up.
Mhm.
So what we're saying is the roads need to be maintained. There's a condition to them, and if you let them go badly, then the cost to replace them goes up significant, orders of magnitude. And that's what we're trying to get to, a point where we're maintaining roads at a lower cost than complete reclamations that are at a much higher cost.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Andre, because I don't want it to be information to be misleading. The individual road, the PCI graph, you've seen it, right? So when it's new and it goes relatively flat and gets to that point when it starts dropping drastically. So your road, if your road is not maintained, that's what's gonna happen. But the overall network PCI, and you said it was in the 60s, and actually it's been inching up because of all the work we've been doing. That will not drop that way.
Okay.
Yes,
Just
totally
as
unmaintained,
individual
yeah,
road.
but yeah, that will gradually decrease. And that's the average PCI of the town's network.
But
Okay.
we have this nice chart where
Yeah,
where it
that's what I
shows
was
like
thinking of.
annual spending of X dollars. This is where the average of the PCI goes down and so on, and where like if you have 4 million plus, we're just keeping above the 70.
So we'll need to
Yeah.
be pulling those charts out as part of this
Yes.
education.
It's
no question.
memorable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just one comment on the wording on it, and again, we are very early on that first one on the roads.
Mhm.
There's this kind of as specified in the fiscal year 26 capital improvement plan or any other sum.
Yeah.
I remember we had that on the last asked when we did the $50 million.
Mhm.
And we had to do a last minute change on this or any other sum.
Okay,
So I would encourage.
I'll look into
to Look
that.
into that, we
Yeah,
don't have
that's
to,
right.
again, this last minute.
Yeah, this is town manager's language. I just cut and pasted.
Yeah,
from
but we
last
had
year.
we had to change it,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they still had an old
Thank
slide,
you.
and I had to
Yeah,
correct it
I hear you.
live in the town meeting.
Correct.
It was a little bit of a pain,
Got it.
just 3-4 words. that-
Yep. It can be one comma. So,
Yeah.
thank you. So that's on that, and I want also, just in the interest of time, we talked stormwater already. But the issue is, if we have a rate that you folks have voted on, we can go to town meeting with a budget that needs to be approved and people understanding what the impact is. That's why you set the rates before town meeting, to be clear. Then, when it comes to MCI wastewater treatment plant, there's gonna be a lot of discussion on that. The good news is we have had a crisis of wastewater capacity constraints that we've talked about ad nauseum. This is a opportunity, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you're gonna hear that, you know, in the schedule, the town has to respond to Department of Capital Asset Management, they're DCAM, they're the state entity that's responsible for the disposition of that property. We have to respond by February 24th. Or, you know, a letter of interest or whatever it is for the wastewater treatment facility. So we're doing a lot of work up front, and it's clear, and they understand that we're not getting the keys on, you know, in March. Once we give them a response, there's 180 days additional allowance for some additional negotiations and planning, but the intent is that they need to have that facility continue to operate. In order for it to continue to operate just for their purpose alone, I think I just found today, it's about a $7 million need of investments into their facility, whether the town's involved or not. That has to happen within the next few years. We've identified that. If the town is to take on, in addition to serving their interests, but to realize the development of the MCI parcel, as well as external needs to relieve the capacity constraints elsewhere, we're probably looking at, you know, somewhere around, you know, a total cost of about, in addition, maybe another 14 million or so.
So total 21?
21 to 25 to complete this, but we will be building that into a plan that our goal is not to burden the rate payer for the sewer, but the community. It's not a burden, it's an opportunity. Because right now, the challenge for the community is we cannot grow. We cannot realize our affordable housing. We cannot realize economic growth and development without wastewater capacity. So it's the opportunity. Will there be a cost? Yes. But there are communities that don't have that, and they are envious of the fact that Concord may have this. So it's part of the messaging. This is very real, but there's gonna be, you know, conversations, and we'll certainly be bringing the board up to speed. But this is building the plane on the fly by design, not anything we're doing, but just based on the pace of the MCI offer to the town. So I just want to highlight that.
My concern is what's in it for me as a taxpayer, if I've already got my house here and I got my septic, and why do I need to?
You want to see the community build out more, so the tax burden can be shared and the community can have the resources it wants, including business, you know, housing, all those sorts of things that are limited right now.
Yeah,
So just, I think it's structurally Concord, if you look from a financial perspective, needs to broaden the tax base massively. If you're just stuck where we are, there's no other way than increase your and my taxes
right.
to just unreasonable levels. So every development is that you need to have more housing to increase that level. You have to get non-residential tax income. Right now, 93% of the tax income is driven by residential property taxes. Yeah, that it needs to be more non-residential commercial taxes. And the only way to deal with it is in a make more development available, have a plan select board, they talked on Monday, they will set up a working group, to look at all the properties that are coming online in the next 5+ years. There are about more than 100 acres of land coming online for the town, or potentially for the town, depending on what decisions they make. So there's a significant development opportunity there, to exactly go after that, to broaden the tax base so that the tax burden on an individual residential property tax is getting better under control. Yeah, that's what's in it for you.
But
The-
you need
the
to show
one-
me that.
yeah.
I'm gonna need to hear that message. clearly.
So this will not be Public Works responsibility.
Yeah.
This is the town manager. There is a advisory board, the select board, trying to manage that property development. You have an economic vitality coordinator who's trying to initiate interest in the town. But right now, the biggest constraint they have is we can't serve them with wastewater. That's why they end up here asking for every drop of can we please?
Yeah.
It's very real.
So is
Yeah,
there
I
a
get
chance in that process not only to take over that and that little capacity, it's not a lot of capacity
Mhm.
we are getting there. Is there a chance to get in that process kind of more general capacity allowance?
Yes,
Okay. And that's part of the negotiation, yeah.
that's part of our work to try and get creative to do that.
Okay.
But there is something to be said where it's unusual for a municipality to have two different wastewater treatment facilities. And the combination of having two provides flexibility, even when you're talking with capacity that one doesn't independently.
Yeah. Good.
So.
All right,
So that's you'll get more, but this was the introduction to some of those things to stay tuned, so. with
all right.
that,
Before we move on, any questions from the public on this here? Do we have questions
Looking in the room. No, I see, Carlin Reed.
Alan Reed?
Hi, Carlin Reed. Quick question. How many FTEs in Public Works are non-employees? I'm non-union employees. Let me modify that. Non-union employees in the Public Works Department.
I don't have the number, but I'll give you the general understanding. The only union in Public Works is in the highway grounds operations area. So the highway grounds, Park and Tree, cemetery are union. Other than that, the rest of Public Works, including the water sewer operations, are non-union.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the public?
I see Linda Neiman.
Okay, Linda?
Hello, I was just wondering on the road and pavement portion, if there is just like 15% put aside for safety of intersections and pedestrians and bicycles, or have you even gotten to that point of like looking at individual line items?
We've gotten to the point where we've just been introduced, but that is, stay tuned, okay? And it really is a question of how is it being packaged? Is it part of the borrowing, the tier 3, or is it separate under the tier 2 is to be determined? But there is an understanding and a need to have some allowance there.
And then I have a separate question about the MCI facility. I just find it really fascinating about the wastewater issue in town that we have and the potential of us taking over the MCI wastewater. I mean, it sounds like we'd have to expand that, right, in order to develop that area and also include mixed use in order to, generate revenue in that space. And I'm just wondering, like, how much more we'd have to expand. It sounds like it's a really old system.
So two things. One is the age of it. It drives the need to invest about $25 million over the next 10, 15 years. That's the age. The capacity or expanding it is what we're evaluating. And, we don't have an answer for that yet. But really, it's a 310,000 gallon a day surface water discharge permit. The existing use for the farm, the state police, there's a few properties over there, somewhere in the 80,000 gallons a day. So it's the remainder of it that's gonna be available for the redevelopment on that campus. And some, you know, if we connect it to our system, redevelopment or expansion in the rest of the town.
I think I'm just as a suggestion for messaging for townsfolk to like convert that into how many like homes or not homes, but like apartments that could be built and restaurants and other revenue generating sources that would translate into. I know you're used to thinking of it in terms of, you know, wastewater, like flow and numbers, but for just folks like me, like what does that translate into how many additional restaurants or businesses that could be put in?
Right, yeah.
Yep, thank you. That's a good comment. All right, any other? No, then with that, yeah.
Oh, Robert Hills here, Central Street. Just a comment on generating revenue. I think what's important, we generate net revenue. Gross revenue doesn't help us, net revenue does, and I think in part of our analysis or part of it's done. As we think for a single family house, to use an example, what it may generate in gross real estate taxes, and then you add a couple children to school, what is the net number for that? And I think just to think about the net number is more important than the gross number.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
all right,
director's report.
director's report, sorry.
You know, it's okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna cut this shorter to just facilities only because the environmental health and
touched on a
safety
lot of
manager
other
isn't available right now. So what I want to do is introduce Russ Carlstead. He's our facilities manager. Been with the town just over 6 months, 7, 8 months. Has had an opportunity to get his arms around the facilities needs and challenges, and just wanted to introduce you to Russ. I will say Russ is also a key player when we start looking at some of the redevelopment needs around town for the municipal purposes, as well as public works facilities and that sort of thing. So it's good to have him as part of the team as we go through this exercise. But Russ, if you can, you got 10 minutes. If you can get before 6, you get a prize.
Really get it 5 minutes or so.
Okay, there you go.
Well, thanks for having me. Facilities is the unsung group of everything. We're sort of the catch basin for all of it. But facilities has come a long way in the last 30 years as a international organization, the IFMA, International Facility Management Association. And that's why I hold my credentialing through post architecture, and it's a worldwide credential. I shared with you a page that has the 11 competencies that we test on every 3 years. I'm not going
Hey, Russ,
to.
why don't you come over here so they can see you and the screen?
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
I was at the head of the table.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work quite as well.
No. So here are the 11 competencies. Basically, everything to do with buildings, operation, management, design, construction, life cycle. You know, we deal with all of that on a daily basis. So, previous opportunities to work in other communities set me up fairly good for Concord. So coming to Concord, we have an assortment of deferred maintenance projects. We're not going to go over those today. We talked about those a little bit earlier. But some of the stuff we got today, some of the slides, we can start going through them. Some of what we've been accomplishing, a lot of background things. 133 across the street. We had the air conditioning fail in July. And timelines didn't allow us to get the air conditioning system replaced until November. So this is just, yeah. So this is just an indication of what you have to go through when everyone thinks, oh, you just change this or do this, it's little. It's cranes, it's public safety, you know, it's OSHA. Notice the OSHA violation there on that worker. He doesn't work for us, no helmet. But here's a picture of the old unit that used to live up here. I don't have a picture of the new unit that's in place because the picture didn't look good. But, you know, we work in these old cramped spaces and it takes a lot of time to get things done. We don't know what was done before. You think you might be right, you hit a pipe or a line. wrong, so, you know, adds hours to the day.
Lost knowledge.
It's 141, the building we're in now, you can see the overgrowth on the back. It was getting up into all the ventilation systems,
Wow.
so that's less than a year. So we got that all cleaned out, we have to keep this building clean on the perimeter. We have a lot of water problems in this building, so we wanna keep all the water containing, items away from the building, so we're gonna have a nicely mowed lawn around here in the future. And we're not gonna let this happen again. Previously, it got so bad before I was here that raccoons were climbing up and getting into the attic and causing problems, as you can imagine. Little things we do to improve. You know, we find these as we go through town. Visitor center is pitch black in the middle of the day. So we put out the lighting and installed these new linear fixtures, which now almost overlight the space, but now they have merchandising. Better for the tourists, better for the employees. Saves us a little energy, because those are MR16 bulbs in there, and they were like burning hot and spinning the electric meter, so we got rid of those. Always fix 2 or more problems with 1 swipe. This is hard to figure out, but over in the police, and the police station up in the, if anyone up in the 3rd floor conference room. Well, they needed more area to hang TVs to do, for the emergency management center. Aaron, what's that called? What do they call that?
EOC.
VOC?
EOC,
EOC,
Emergency Operations Center.
right. So we blocked off a bunch of voids, and now the chief is gonna have multiple screens along there, which is gonna help go a long way for the 250th, for all the different divisions to monitor what's happening. So, you know, we tie together with all the other departments to see what they need, where we can help them out, all in-house, very low-cost job. And that should be done in the next week. Here's an interesting one. We have an employee coming back who needs a lactation room.
Okay.
So this room right over here, we're transforming that into a lactation room for the employee on, it's a temporary basis. But again, you have a need, you gotta take care of the employees. We wanna make sure all the employees have safe, happy, productive days. So a few minor modifications in that, relocating our printer, and now we have a lactation room. It'll be all private and secure.
That's great. I had to use a bathroom.
Yeah, see, you can't do that. It's illegal now.
It's illegal to do that in a
Yeah,
bathroom now?
it's illegal now to do that. You can't do that.
Well, I'm an old fart, so I'm
Yeah.
okay.
And then finally, always towards the environmental nature of the town. This is how we get around town. We refurbished a great expense through the Public Works Department. Thank you, Aaron. The bikes got refurbished, and now we use these to tool around, or at least I do, in town, instead of driving my car around. So that's just 4 or 5 little things that we do, but everything takes time, and, you know, we do big things and little things, so we just try to keep everything moving smooth.
I'll say Russ has a great group of operations, personnel. Really needed a manager to try and orchestrate and identify what the needs are, because facilities group, very popular, wherever they go, it's kind of like an IT person. Oh, I gotta, so Russ has been able to help manage that, prioritize where the work is, but we got skilled carpenters, technicians. He's oversees the custodial staff as well. And so, with Russ's help, we've been really getting a better understanding of the needs. And, we have a lot of facilities. I think there's, 27 or
Yeah,
something like that.
everything is unique, so, it takes time to learn them all, but we're getting there. Some of the bigger projects on tap right now, finishing the roofing on 133 and 135, because we have some leaking, and there was money allocated for it, so we're moving forward on that. Repairing the masonry at the fire station, and doing some roofing work over there. They've got some problems in the back corner. And on this campus, we're looped in, and we're going to install 5 double head level 2 chargers to take care of the increased capacity of electric vehicles over here. Exact locations to be determined. We're working on parking sort of layout over here. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and no one really sees it until it shows up, but
Yeah.
we're always busy.
Any questions?
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere, maybe, I don't know, maybe I fell asleep, no offense, but I thought I read somewhere about 144 million redoing of the campus of all of this with police. Did I
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've read that somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
you read that.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, so I will say
Okay.
this.
So I'm like,
Yeah, no.
we're gonna have this huge, beautiful place.
No, so this is the issue. 20 years ago, a need was identified.
Okay,
10 years ago, they decided, let's start trying to address it.
okay,
7 years ago, they hired a consultant with a senior management team to start the process. 5 years ago, that senior management team changed. A report was issued.
Was orphaned.
It was orphaned. We are now picking up, but we're dealing with a 20-year-old problem. We're now sort of resurfacing and I know the select board is interested in having the town collectively understand what properties do we have? What should we be prioritizing as far as needs? And during that study, a few findings. One is they need to do some improvements for the townhouse. And a few years ago, they did. There was money invested to try and upgrade, optimize the townhouse. All the solutions were not ideal, the goal set, but we can do something. This campus, there were some concepts of how we could expand, but we really didn't have the footprint and, it's a floodplain area to do the expansion. So we've been sitting, waiting for something. Staff to, get an understanding of the true needs, the town to identify that we really do need to invest. As I tell everybody, this is your community. These are your facilities. We are your service providers. And so our job is to highlight these needs. If they're invested in or not, it really compromises the town's needs and interests long range. So what you saw was an extract of, something. And, costs of 10 years ago are escalating. So we do have, and the select board announced the other night, a desire to have a volunteer committee made up of various representation around town and some staff to start mapping out what are we doing and how do we get there in a phased approach. So Public Works and police and fire have been prioritized, but other needs are out there and we just got to start chipping away at it. So with MCI property, part of the redevelopment consideration is if we're going to take over the wastewater treatment plant, is there an allowance or should there be for a Public Works to, we're gonna have a wastewater facility. So what's the best neighbor to a wastewater facility? Maybe it is a Public Works. Maybe we can provide a buffer. We move from this campus, that allows redevelopment potential here. So, I think it's gonna be a domino effect, and I think the town's really gonna be challenged. We gotta make some movement, but until we do, we're just continuing to
Put Band-Aids on everything.
Band-Aids on everything, and what Russ and his team will be responsible for all those Band-Aids.
Okay,
Mr. Band-Aid.
okay,
There's a lot of Band-Aids.
okay,
There's
all
a
right.
lot of Band-Aids.
So that's.
So that's what I was, because I was
It's very-
thinking, I thought he was gonna tell me, look at this, and I was expecting, I was like, getting all excited to see this beautiful, like, new
Put
campus. and I-
twinkle on it, right? Sparkling, good.
Yeah, no, it's great, but I have to say, I was expecting something different.
No.
Fortunately,
It'll
there's
take
some
time.
capital money that's also orphaned out there for facilities. We're using that for a number of things going on. But the money's already there to spend on a lot of these repairs.
Okay.
Just to polish it up a little bit. But yeah, otherwise everything's gonna be 5 years out. Shiny stuff.
Okay, any public comments on facilities?
Don't see any.
Don't see there, nothing here. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second, okay, all in favor? Aye, so the meeting is adjourned at, whoa,
5:59.
5:59.
We did it.